guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is episode something of of our podcast. I'm not even sure. Well, I think it's 6. But nonetheless, we have Overwatch Choco here. You may know him for his coaching work in Overwatch. He happens to be here with me. Hello, Choc. How are you, mate?
Hello, good yourself?
Mate. I got a nice, refreshing beverage. You know, it's one of those great days when you have like a nice, cool, refreshing glass of water with like 14 ice in there. Uh,
14 ice, dude. I just like crunching them at the end. I can't. My teeth, man. As if it doesn't hurt your teeth. You're a madman.
yeah. Well, that's how you refine them. It's sort of like an otter when you chew on like
An
like
otter.
logs or something. I don't fucking know, dude. um,
Jesus.
But yeah, so yeah, if you're not familiar with who Overwatch Choco is, he is a pretty accomplished coach within our scene of Overwatch. Well, relatively accomplished. Look, you went to America, and not many people from. Oh, sorry, you didn't go to America, but you coached for
Yeah,
people
that's
in
true.
America. So you know that's a pretty good accomplishment. There we go, English. Um, but yeah, mate. So let's sort of dial down the clock a little bit and sort of look at this through a brief timeline. Or even before we get into it, why did you get into coaching in the first place? Because I've asked this question to a variety of people. Like John Galt had his own particular reasons because he, of course, was in the army for a little bit, and he found
Mm.
like that assertiveness and him being controlling, and he really enjoyed the fact that even when he played Overwatch from the very start, he would like teach his friends randomly. Do you have some sort of elaborate story as to why you decided to venture into Overwatch as a coach rather than maybe would you consider player back then too?
Yeah. I think the original plan was I was always just playing it for fun, and it was never really that serious. Obviously, when Overwatch came out, I was still at uni, so I was like,
Hmm.
I was just playing in my off days, doing, I don't know, when there was not a lot to do, not doing assignments when I was supposed to be,
Yeah.
basically. And I think season one was actually not that bad, but in the comparison to what season one was, everyone was bad in season one. No matter how you look at it,
Yeah.
everyone sucked. In compared to today, obviously. So I wasn't too bad. I was like, you know, back then the numbers were it was like ranked numbers, not even like diamond or anything like that. I was
Yeah.
like,
It's a primitive
it was
system.
like the 0 to 100 scale, dude. Um, I think I think I got to like 65 ish, maybe like 63, which
It's pretty good.
was okay. It was
Yeah.
okay back then, considering like most of like the top tier guys were at like 70s and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, so I was like on my way, and then as the seasons went on, I just started to get worse, basically. I started, I couldn't seem to like nail down one role. I wasn't really that great. I was playing with friends more and not, I guess, trying as hard, but like just sinking hours in.
Yeah.
I think I got to a point where I had no idea there was even like a scene or like I knew about esports, but like I had no idea there was a scene. No idea who Atar was at the time. Who was probably Atar, Kiki, RQT, Gumba. All those guys were like the big guys at the time. I think.
Yeah.
At least they were when I went to go and watch the World Cup, and that was like the first esports experience when it came to Sydney. And I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing. And my mate Glenn, just Glenn, who you've met, and he started Pixel with me eventually. Um, he was high masters, sort of low GM, and he was getting into teams and doing things like that. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, but I still suck at the game. I'm still platinum. Never left platinum. I'm there for life. But yeah, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I would love to do something like that. I joined. I think I joined a team for about 2-3 weeks, and all we did was play quick play together, and that was our practice. It's probably the
Yeah.
worst run team I was ever a part of. I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea what was going on. Um, but I was in there. Actually, we did all right. Like it actually helped improve me, so that was always good. Anyway, fast forward probably like I don't know, a bit less than a year, 6 months, 7 months or something. From there, I don't really know what the timeline or how long exactly it was. Um, I basically turned around and I was like, well, I still want to do I think I want to do something in esports. I'm not a good player. But I always felt like I understood the game like a decent amount. Like I always understood how compositions worked. I watched a lot of the games anyway. So I was like, well, let's just give it a go, see what happens. So I think I messaged. His name was CC, not TCC, just some guy named CC. Um, who was playing for Ocular Esports at the time, or no, he was managing Ocular Esports at the time. And I was like, how does someone? I had just asked him. I was like, how does someone become a coach? Like, what do you actually do? Um, and he's like, what rank are you? And I was like, oh, I think it was like 3-3 at the time, 3-2. And he's like, oh, yeah, you'll never be a coach. Not with that rank. No one will ever respect you enough to be a coach. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And I was like, and he's looking for a VOD recorder. That's how I messaged him. That's why I messaged him. He was looking for someone to VOD record. And I was like, look, because you helped me out a little bit, like by basically crushing my dreams. I'll come in and I'll VOD record a session for you. Like, upload's not that great, but you'll have it by tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool. I came in, they were playing, I think at the time it was like that double spam meta. Like right before, it was before GOATS, long time. Anyway, they started playing something and I piped up just randomly saying like how that was terrible, really bad communication, really bad teamwork. The worst comp I could ever imagine you were playing, like, and they're like, oh, okay. And I started to say some stuff and they listened to me. And then, yeah, it kind of went from there. I was on that team for like 2 weeks and then CC got picked up by Alter Ego, which was like Clickbait, Jake, Merit. Yeah. That old team.
that.
That.
Just leave it at that.
The fractured ego, dude. And anyway, he got picked up by them. I honestly don't know how. I don't know what happened or how he got into it. But he basically turned around and he took me along. And I was sitting there. I kind of knew what Contenders was at the time. Like I knew of it. I had no idea who any of these people were, but I knew of it. And they were like, "Well, what do you do?" And I was like, "Well, at the moment, I'm like a VOD recorder, but I kind of do analyst work, and I kind of want to do that." They're like, "Oh, okay." And like, "What rank are you?" And I was like, "Oh." I had just lost like 100 games in a row, so clearly I was back in platinum. And so I'm talking to Jake OCE about how I was like platinum. I was like, look, I was very upfront. I was like, look, honestly, I probably can't help you that much with like the mechanical side of things, like, you know, how to use your matrix, how to like blink properly, all that kind of stuff. But I can help you with communication because I have like a very strong background in soccer and playing reps for them and other sports. So. I was always quite good at communication, how it should all work, but the mechanical stuff I sucked at. So that's what I told him. I was like, look, I can VOD record and I can do that for you. He's like, okay, yeah, cool, let's do it. I was like, cool. So that's how I got into that team and basically helped them out for a little bit until I started to realize that I was like really their only option for a coach. And I was like, look, I can't help you as much as you want me to. Like, I wanted to learn. I kind of wanted to learn off someone.
Yeah.
I kept saying like we need to get a coach. Anyway, and that's where Coach Bryce jumped in. He jumped in, helping sort of Joy Boy Jake. He was good for a little while. I mean, he's still a good coach to be fair. I don't know what he's doing these days, but yeah. So he jumped in. I went to learn off him a little bit. It was a bit more difficult. I don't think either of us had any experience working with like multiple coaches. And we did differ, like as much as I didn't feel like I was the most experienced person, we did differ on opinions a fair bit. There was a lot of things in dive meta where I felt I was correct and he was just sort of doing what he wanted anyway, as you should as a head coach. So I actually probably handled it a little bit poorly and turned around and was like, yeah, look, I'm not really doing anything here. I'm not learning anything. I was too, at the time, what's the word? Opinionated, I guess. And I was very strong in those opinions. So I was like, yeah, look, forget this. I'll just go coach another team. I think I'm good enough to like bring them up. I understood how trials and everything worked at this point. So I was like, yeah. And on top of that, Alter Ego was slowly dying as Merit left and Will X pieced out and Zaubad decided to not talk to people during officials. It was a hell of a time.
The start of life.
Zabet has reformed now, so
Yes, he
it's
has.
all
Yes. Good on you, Savile.
good. So yeah, so as all that was happening, I was like, yeah, forget this. I'll go do something else. So then I coached a little bit for a team, an open div team called Unknown, who Nami was on. Back in the day, back before his voice broke.
Broke?
Yeah, his voice now compared to when it was it's nuts. I didn't even know who it was the first time I spoke to him. Um, I don't think anyone else really of note was on that team. In terms of like where they are now, I think they're all they're all still good players, but I think they're all still in the open division. Um, and anyway, so I coached them for a few weeks before Whipley messaged me and said that Jake OCE had recommended me to Whipley as like an analyst or a coach. I think it was an analyst I was recommended for. And so she was like, yeah, can you come in and do a VOD session and see how you go? And I did, and basically told Render and Crimson Wolf that they were bad and they needed to improve. And that was enough to get me the job.
You're not wrong.
they're not that bad. I was just, had to pick on someone during it. But no, it was good. I think my first review was actually against Legacy when you were coaching Legacy for them.
There you go, mate.
So
yeah, we're
there you
supposed
go.
to be arch rivals then.
Yeah, exactly right. So that went well, and then they were looking for like a head coach, and I eventually turned around to Whipley and I was like, "Yeah, look, I just want to be the head coach. Don't get one, please." And she was like, "Oh, okay, fair enough."
Yeah.
And I think I was towards like mid to end season anyway, so I think we came in that like 5th to 8th slot. I think we lost to Blank Blue in the playoffs. But I think everyone was like, we had Legabrul, we had ATAR at the time.
This was Jam, right?
That was Jam, yeah.
So
that was Jam.
That was after Pixel. Or was that?
No, that was before Pixel.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that was before Pixel.
Yeah, that was before Pixel. That was season 1.
Yeah.
So I coached for Alter Ego and Jam in season 1.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And that's right. And there was that big, we had that mini Prowler fiasco.
Yeah, I remember.
Where I felt really bad for him at the time. Like, I understand completely where he's coming from, but redemption arc at Pixel for him. Yeah. Or for us. But no, we came to, and from there I was kind of like, I probably did this too early, I think. I think if I had done this later, it would have been better. But I turned around and I was like, the way that Jam was being run wasn't bad by any means. In fact, it was actually quite good. Like, the owner, I don't know his last name, I just know his first name's Chris. But Whipley and him did, like, a really good job. But I kind of turned around and was like, well, this doesn't seem too hard. And if that's his full-time job, like, I think I could do that. So I turned around and basically created Pixel with Glenn. Just didn't pump any money into it, to be honest. Just made everything ourselves. Picked up Virginia and his team. I don't even remember what it's called. I just remember it was super, super offensive to, what was his name? The guy that was on Boston? He's not allowed to be played anymore.
Oh, was it
Dream Casper? Yeah, it was, Teen Casper, that's right.
Oh my God.
Teen Casper. It was at like the height of that drama, and that's what they called their team. I was like, oh god. And so that was the original Pixel squad was like Virginia, Exerst, Dubois, Nathan, Wheel. Oh god, I don't remember the last one. He's changed his name very recently. I'll have to look him up. He was a really good aim support, actually. He was a really good aim support. I don't think it wasn't Keimer. It was something else. That's okay. I'll figure it out. I'll find his name. But yeah, they were actually really good before I got there. They were completely fine. It's just they needed direction and they needed a structure around them. And so once I gave them that structure, it was like they were just demolishing people, which was really good, I felt. Still struggling against sort of those top 2-3 teams anyway, like Tainted Minds. I think it was Tainted Minds, Surge. Oh no, Tainted Minds, Serenity, and like bin chickens were like the top 3 at the time. But everyone else were pretty much decimating. Like it was really good. Went through trials with that team, and I think we got really lucky in the end. We took Serenity Map 5, I think. No, we didn't, because they rule booked us. Noxious rule booked me
Bastard.
because the OPR didn't work. Sickening from Noxious. But no, I would have done the same thing, to be fair. Yeah, actually,
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe I would have.
I don't know. You are a good guy, Choco.
I've let someone go before. I forget who it was. I remember that FMC let someone go before. I think it was Surge. But yeah. So we went down like 3-1 to them. We went down. We lost to Tainted Minds back in the day when they topped trials somehow. God tier. We took them to map 5. I think we lost to Bin Chickens like 3-1 or 2-1 or something. Everyone else we beat, and then it came down to the infamous Interstellar game, where it was like they just one-clipped everyone in the head, and we were like, what is happening? They haven't won a single game, and they're about to
Blizzard
fall
up,
us.
Blizzard up.
Oh, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because like Exerst. So what happened, right, was Exerst recorded the whole thing, and was because that's what I had told them to do. I was like, if you record your POVs, record your POVs. 1, we can go over them together. 2, you should be going over them anyway.
3, you're up against Interstellar.
Well, I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know what a thrower was, dude. I didn't know wind trading. But yeah, it turned out. Look, they never really confirmed or denied anything. We put through 2 claims. One claim was that what was it again? That people were using accounts that weren't the people they said they were, so just account sharing. The other one we put through was aimbotting, which we didn't have like really strong evidence for. To be fair, it just looked sus, basically. Like when like a tracer comes in and just one clips your Zen and your Lucio in the head in one clip, like 1 or 2 clips, it's like I don't know. It was just that like those moments were just happening a lot, and like either whoever was playing that tracer at the time was just playing out of their mind, was an extremely good player and just doesn't play, or we don't know who he is. But we were pretty sure that's what happened. I've spoken to some of those Interstellar boys. They said they didn't aimbot. They just said they account shared. So, but Blizzard didn't confirm confirm either one. They just said we were right. And so basically Interstellar got the boot, and then Surge got kicked out of top 4, and we got put in. So that was good. That was a happy day for everyone. I remember calling the boys, and like Duboy was like in tears, and I was a little tears running down my cheek at work. It was a good day. It was a good day for us. Not a great season though. Don't think we won. We didn't win a series. Game 1 I had to play.
Yep, I remember that.
The lowest SR player ever to grace the fields.
That was up against
Avant.
That was up against Avant. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. we took like 1 round of Koth, and we're like, we've won. We've done enough,
dude. Like, I remember. I think it was last season up against when I was coaching Legacy.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like my coaching has been a reflection of how motivated I was at that time, and the results like reflected on what happened.
Yeah.
And at the time, like Serenity were hailed to be like a pretty good team, right? Like they were like the dark horse to go to LAN. And since I know a lot of the Serenity boys well, I conducted a strategy against them. Like they were the only team that I knew like so well that like, even Legacy weren't good. I knew we were going to beat them. Because before I was sort of helping out with Serenity a little bit back before, and I was like, okay, so this is how you beat them. They have a diva player called Arceus, and he so happens to scout as a diva all the time. So you literally see a diva using his thrusters like over the wall to like call out like where they are. So I said, as soon as he does that, just dive that motherfucker. He has no thrusters. He's used everything. Just kill him. And that strategy, like I think we ended up winning that match 3-1. And I like the feeling of like when you're a coach and you find something very specific
Yep.
and you succeed in it. Oh, it was so great. I mean, mind you, there wasn't anything great for me after that. But look, you have to acknowledge your strengths and weaknesses. Um,
Still.
but oh well. Speaking of actually, you and I were with each other for a little bit on fuck.
Was that Avant?
Was it Avant? Yeah,
When I
because
was like kind of doing both at the same, I was like going back and forth.
yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I remember we created that strategy on Watchpoint.
That Junkertown
Yeah.
one?
No,
Oh,
no.
no, the
Yeah,
Junkrat one.
the Junkrat one on
Yeah.
Watchpoint, and we're like holding fucking top two teams in
I remember that.
it.
Yeah, it was like blank or order at the time now, but it was like blank back then. We like had a scrim with and we just full held them and we were just like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah, I know.
That was a good strat. That was a good
It
strat.
was. It was. See,
I still, if you look at Ground Zero's like past Watchpoint Gibraltar strat, I still use elements of it.
oh, it feels
Like
good,
you
man.
watch, there's still a Zen server, dude.
That's fantastic. So
It's so good.
there you go, teams. Choco's future is unknown, but let it be known that I could be there in the background.
That's it.
Because I don't have any success, but that strat on Gibraltar was I was involved with that. So it was just a premonition.
Pretty sure it was your idea.
It was,
I think
yeah.
I've just taken it and gone.
That's
It works,
fine.
dude.
So maybe I'll be with you in the future, Choco.
That's it.
Exactly.
We'll see where life takes us. I'll take you around.
Alright, dude.
Come with me.
All right. So continue on with the story before I rudely interrupted. So you were
No, no.
straight after
I was straight after trials. Yeah, oh, Pixel.
Pixel talking
Yeah.
about your season, and you didn't win that much.
Nah, not. I don't think we won. We won like we went to a couple. Who did we take to map 5? Masterminds.
Was it?
Yeah, I remember because I remember getting a DM from Maid like literally in the next minute, being like, "How did you do this?"
Oh yeah, because that was the season everyone was like, Masterminds is gonna like beat the shit out of everyone. Um, 'cause-
I don't think they were going to beat the shit out of everyone. I think they just were. It was like Kanga, Avant, and Masterminds were like the three. Because in one group, it was like you three like going at it for like that second spot.
Yeah. I think most people said Masterminds would be first, but like the second spot was very contested. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that and getting a DM from Maid being like, "How'd you do this?" And then all of a sudden, I started getting like good scrims from Maid because he was just ignoring me. He's like, "Bottom 2 team, don't talk to me."
Garbage. Yeah, he has to be on the list. He showed me that list, by the way.
Yeah. The what was it? It was like I forget what he said. It was like
He has like a little bit of text like right next to each team, and it's like
yeah.
just
It was
he's like fuck this team.
yeah. It was like tainted minds struggle to breathe.
Yeah.
we was something like that. It was like can't seem to put together a full scrim block without killing themselves or something. It was really bad. We had one scrim with them. And it was like a really poor scrim from us, and we were just never allowed back. I was like, oh, well, fair enough, I guess. But at the time, it sucks. But yeah, Pixel was pretty good. It was going well. I think the issue with that was I was trying to run it with Glenn, but I wasn't done coaching, and so a lot of what needed to be done was like, I wasn't done coaching. Glenn wasn't done playing because he was playing Fortnite at the time, like in like those in sort of the professional leagues over in that genre. And so no one was really running it at the time. It was kind of like it was still happening. I was still on social media, I was still doing all that work, but I think I tried to get one coach for the boys, and that was, I think it was Gel. I tried to get, and he said yes, and then last second he said no, and he went down to like make Gel Town, and so I was not stuck coaching. I think that's really what I wanted to do, but I was just trying to do too many things at the same time, and so eventually my heart went back to coaching, and I was like, yeah, look, I'm just gonna go and find another team because I want to go to LAN basically. After MEO, I was like, I want to go to LAN. It's like my number one goal is I'm going to LAN. But it wasn't that I didn't feel like I could do it with the guys that I had. I think I was just looking for something where I didn't have or like the administrative background that I had to do with Pixel. And so that's when I put out like an LFT, and Whipley messaged me immediately and was like, "What are you doing? Come here, come here." I was like, "Okay." And then, obviously I went with Heist. Well, actually, I went with Heist, and I think Avant had John Galt at the time, and then he got picked up by Gladiators, as we all know now.
Yep.
And I was going to be the John Galt successor until I found out that they were kind of going to move the team around depending on what the best deal they could get was, and I was like, "Oh, this will go down like a house on fire."
That was awful.
Yeah, this is not going to go well. So I was like, "Look, I'm just going to stay out of this one," and went straight for Heist, and was like, "Yeah, sign me up." And we had Roro at the time, and that team was at the start of that season. We were destroying people, like absolutely, utterly destroying people with that team. That was ridiculous. And that was kind of right before Goats became like our number one strategy. And I think the only people we really struggled against was Noxious and the Mavs, because you just couldn't seem to like. There was like a triangle, and there was nothing that you could do that they didn't know how to deal with, and they were so fun. They were so easy to just swap. You couldn't. There was no one strategy that could beat them at the time, and they were utterly demolishing people. Order, Sydney Drop Bears didn't matter. They were easily like pre-season 3, I think it is. Pre-season 3, they were easily the number one team in OCE for like a little while, easily. And then Goats Meta came along, and then we started destroying people in Goats Meta. And then the great OCE shuffle happened. We lost to Roro like 2 days before roster lock. Picked up Duboy and just didn't look back. Basically, we did. Considering the players we had, who we all kind of now know as like really good players. Like Jungle was always really good. Locust was always really good. Dowser was always really good. Duboy, Bus, and Gusto were like all people who weren't highly rated. And people weren't really giving them a chance, from what I understand. Like Gusto, I think he had like 2 offers. I think, but one of them was like for a lower tier team anyway. So, Bus had nothing. Obviously, coming off the 0-20 win rate, wasn't 0% in a season doesn't get you too many offers.
Yeah.
So he came across pretty quick. And then Duboy obviously came back from like holidays, hadn't picked up the game for like 2 months beforehand. Like since like the last season ended, he hadn't practiced once. So for him to come in and assume the role of Brig, not knowing what to do, never even touching the hero, he's done phenomenally well for himself. So that was a really good season for us. That was awesome, actually. That was a really good season. I think when we went to map 5 against FMC, I was like, I'm the worst coach in the world. I was 100% convinced I was the worst coach in the world. They had no coach. They had what, in my opinion, was like less talented players, and they had less practice, and they were like demolished us in like a lot of like. I think we lost more than they won, but still props to them that That was like probably the lowest point of my season was week 1, where it was like we straight up almost lost our first game to the people who ultimately came last in our group.
Yeah, and they collapsed in that season too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably, it was just, I mean, week 1's always like a wild week. It just is, but because you just don't know what that person's going to come out with. And if you don't kind of, get rid of the nerves early or deal with it like straight away, that happens. You go to map 5, and it's basically all hangs in the balance. When we went to map 5 against like other teams, I wasn't all that worried, because it's, they were really good teams, and it was like taking them to map 5 for like either way was like a victory in its own sense. It's like an acceptable loss, even if you lose those. Because it was Mavs and Order at the time, I think, were the other 2 teams we took to map 5.
Right, yeah.
But FMC would have just been an unacceptable loss, in my opinion. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, considering where a lot of people ranked them during that season as well. Like,
Mm,
no one thought they were going to do too well.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, they thought they were going to do well because I remember I put a tweet. They made a power rankings actually,
Yeah, yeah.
and FMC were like third in the group or something. And I said, and like I made a tweet saying, "How are these guys
Yeah.
third? There's no way they can like they cannot come fourth." And I had like two FMC players like reply in the tweets. It's like, we're out here to prove you wrong. And look,
Yeah, I remember that.
to be honest, I do like to play devil's advocate because there are
Yeah.
like, let me just say, there are a lot of dick suckers in the scene that just like to basically hail everyone and don't like to, make any controversy. And there are a lot of people who make controversy.
Mm.
So there's barely people in the middle ground.
Ye-
I do it because sometimes a lot of people are very dishonest,
mm.
and they just sort of do it as a credit. But yeah, no, that's enough about me. But
You like the Thorin of our scene.
I wouldn't go that far, mate.
One day.
I'm developing a very elderly beard. So
You're wearing the scarf, man.
I'm wearing the scarf. Yeah, I just need the fucking jacket on the back of the fur.
Trust me, it's episode 6, alright? He's at episode like 1,000,000.
Yeah,
You get it. You're on your way.
a few million to go.
But yeah, I remember those power rankings were like they put us at like out of like 12 teams. I think we were actually I don't think we were too bad. I think we were
I think you
like
were 5 or 6.
yeah. What was it? Were we 8? I don't remember. I remember thinking we were lower than we should have been. I remember thinking that for
I'm pretty
sure.
sure it was 5, man.
5?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better than I thought then. That's better than I thought.
But because that was the season that people had Mavs 4th, and like
Oh,
they were debating between you two, right?
yeah, no, Blank was above us.
Oh, blank. Yeah,
It was,
sorry.
yeah,
you're
Blank
right.
was above us.
There we go.
You're right. So it was like Drop Bears order. I think was
That was the
was
season
it?
that blank like was really disappointing too.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they had blank and Mavs above you.
they're Blank and
But
Mavs above us.
but like yeah, some people said that you guys were better than Mavs, but like it was.
I think yeah,
I think out of like 8 of how many people were on the board, I think like 6, 2 said that you guys were better, and the rest said Mavs.
yeah. To be fair, at the time I probably would have agreed with them. I probably would have said Mavs myself. Um, but yeah, I remember looking at the roster. I remember thinking Atletico was going to be really good as well. I think Atletico might have been above us as well in 5th because at the time it was like I mean, no one really knew what they were doing. They just knew the players on the team.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Remember
I
that?
remember that. Yeah, too.
Like it was Gob, Kiki, like just Gob and Kiki is like a top 4 team anyway. Like
Yeah, it was
doesn't
good
matter.
basketball, too.
So yeah, I just remember that. I remember that and seeing those and being like, oh no way, like going like being sick. Like those. To be fair, like those things are usually pretty accurate. Except for last season, that was an absolute shit fest. let's face that. We'll get there, but that was a shit fest. But yeah, so that was I thought we did really well. The order game was insane. I mean, the first 2 games we played, if you go back and watch that, like we were so strong. Admittedly, Order made a lot of mistakes, but we still performed like really well. Last 2 maps, I think, Order started realizing they were about to lose, stepped it up, and then map 5 was like, never seen a team work so well together on the brink, like, especially at that point in time. Like that was just something else. Like there's no way that I had any input really on that kind of stuff. That was all them. They were just Jungle's beats, Gusto's bombs, Bus's shatters, Douse's trances, like everything. The fact that Duboy like cancelled 2 of Quatz's shatters was they were just nuts. They're on fire. Yeah, it was like the perfect. Everything that could have gone right went right for us, pretty much. And that was just them making those plays happen, and it was unfortunate for Order. A few things like I think I think at the time they were practicing on like live servers to versus Asian teams, and the thing is there was a very small difference, and that's always why I refused to have the team scrim on live. Was the grav on live would stop a charging Ryan, but the grav on OPR, or the server that all the pros play on, the patch that we played on, the grav didn't stop the Ryan yet.
Oh yeah, I remember those changes.
Yeah.
It was the dashes that you could.
It
Right,
was
so
to stop anyone from being able to get out of them and go through them and
Diva for
stuff.
the same thing too, right?
Uh, I don't think she could boost out of it yet, or boost through it.
Oh, okay.
But like, the biggest thing was Ryan's could charge through it, and it wouldn't stop them. And one of the biggest things, I think it was Jordation. Bus was going to pin Quats, and if he pinned Quats, it was like pretty much we'd won, because there was no way he would get back in time, and it was just 6v5. And Geordie, to try and save Quats, grabbed Bus, but Bus was already charging, and so he went straight through it, killed Quats, came back, and we just cleaned them up. And it was like, I remember looking at that and being like, oh, this is why I don't do that. It was like the one mistake that probably could have happened that happened for them. It was like super unfortunate, but God, I was glad it happened at the time. So happy. So that was insane. Oh, you should see. Oh man, no, I probably can't give you that clip. That's got a lot of swearing in it. But there's like a little there's a little voice clip after we've won where everyone just goes nuts, and it's like,
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I can reference that in the description.
yeah, it's one of the best clips.
Yeah. And a tear nearly fell down my eye. I was like, oh, there you go.
Everyone was so happy.
Yeah.
And then Mavs was like the complete opposite. Everyone was so devastated, and it was like, we went from probably playing like the best game that we could like ever play in that scenario, or like at our current skill level, to like playing again like the worst. We were so not consistent in what we were doing, and it's like you look at it and it's like there's like this massive turning point on Hanamura, where it's like we have a grab bomb. It's like gonna be their last fight or something. And all we had, I think they were defending us, or we were defending them. We had to hold them for like 25%. It was like overtime. We had grab and bomb, and it was like, it's over. We've won. It's going to be, I think it was like 2-1 or something. And then we would have won the next map because we're just gods at it. But as we grab bombs, the bomb goes into the pit and kills no one on Hanamura second. And we were just like, oh, what have we done? They had nothing. They couldn't stop it. They had no shield. It was over. Lost that one. Went to map 5 in the end, and we just got crushed. It was like the most crushing defeat we could have had, because it was like we should have had their number, and yeah, we just didn't. And it was awful. It was like complete high to like the lowest low in like 2 weeks.
Ironically enough, you guys made land and they didn't.
Yeah, we got very lucky in the end, didn't we?
Yep.
We got very lucky.
So you get the bigger victory.
Yeah. Mavs have this, and I don't know if they still have it. They still showed tendencies last season, but they've got this tendency where they seem to play as hard as required of them to get a 3-1 win. And because they get so many 3-1s, their map scores at the end of each season are always complete trash.
Yeah.
They're almost always complete trash. And that's nothing to do with I don't particularly know why, but they lose maps where they shouldn't. And,
well, from what I understand, like maybe I think this was 2 seasons ago, where Noxious was in charge of maps, where they would literally pick the same maps every single time, and they would only scrim those maps too. So like if they ended up winning a map or whatever, and the next team ends up choosing something else that they haven't practiced because they've only scrimmed like 1 out of the 2 maps. It's like a fucking 50-50. They're swinging every single time.
They're just happy to cop the L.
Yeah, because, I remember they didn't lose on certain maps. Like Anubis, like they were really, really good.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
They specifically went out of their way. This isn't fair. I don't think it was specifically went out of their way, but they went out of the way not to scrim. I think it was the hybrid maps, because their opinion of it was that they sucked. After first, they sucked. So they didn't scrim. They didn't practice or have any strats for anything after first point on any hybrid. And I remember going into it was like playoffs. We didn't, obviously Pixel didn't make playoffs, and so we were just helping out, Serenity or like the other teams that wanted to practice certain strats but not have anyone spill the beans. And we would. I don't think anyone in my team spilled the beans. I basically made a threat where it was like, if you spill beans on these teams, I will replace you. That was like the agreement. And so everyone was like, okay, we're not, no one says anything. we were like the best team about that. Anyway, and so Noxious, we got a lot of scrims with Serenity because Noxious was like aware of that, and we went to go scrim. I think we were at the time I think towards the end we had like the trials map list or something, so we wanted to scrim a certain map, and Noxious was like, "Oh, could we not do a hybrid?" I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "We're probably gonna lose it anyway." And I was like, "Okay, what do you want to do?" He's like, "Let's go to Anubis." I was like, "Fair enough." And they would never lost on Anubis ever. Like, they always had the clean, like very clean swaps. They always had very clean strategies to the point where they would just spawn hold you on second. Like, you'd be trying to get to the point, you'd die in your spawn. Like, they were just nuts. They just understood that map through and through, and they were just so good at it. And no swap you made I think we maybe took second off them once in the whole of that season. Like, and that's when we kind of like just cheesed them, and they weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was that was a good, like, that strategy got them further than they'd ever gone before. So, eventually they had to make it out of the bottom two. So they did well. But yeah, finally got to land that season. That was the most insane experience I'd ever gone through. Like, it wasn't even a big land either. It was just
You got a small one.
Yeah, we got the small one, but I think it was more like I was just so pumped for the accomplishment. So, when you think about it, when you really think about it, I know like probably the top teams and teams that are pretty like found or like solid in contenders don't really think about this, but when you really break it down, there are I think there was like 100 open div teams this season for Australia. So it's like, when you go into LAN, to be like the top five, I actually don't know the number. I think it might be bigger than that, but however many teams are like trying to get into contenders, and then you being one of the top 4 that go to LAN is like the accomplishment isn't that you're good at Overwatch. It's like you as a team are just have performed one of the most incredible feats. Like, people, I think, forget about it sometimes, about how, I guess, important that is, or how much of an accomplishment that is. And even just going once, it's like, yeah, it sucks to not go this season or to IEM and to the big one and things like that. But yeah, you just have to be proud of yourself, no matter how you do at LAN. Just getting there is so insane. So, and that, to me, like, me just saying that it's actually the wrong opinion to have about it, because going to LAN and winning should be like the goal, but just going to LAN was like still an amazing accomplishment in my eyes anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people had different goals in their mind. Like, I noticed throughout the sort of mid-tier reaching towards like the top tier teams, a lot of their goal was, because like for the seasons before this, always the 4th and 5th slot were usually the ones fighting for it. And for those teams, it was just like, oh, we want to make land because this team's like pretty close to us.
Yeah.
And then once we get land, we'll sort that out when we're there, because usually those last 2 slots are pretty hard to get by.
Yeah. I think though, if you're not aiming to win the entire thing, you just never will. Like, you look at the way the order and blank have like kind of, I don't know about blank. But you look at the way that order always kind of sets their goal. Their goal for the last 2 seasons was always, we're going to win. That's the goal. It's not, let's make it to LAN. It's not, let's go to grand final. It's like, we're going to win. It's like, if you really want to like try and put it to order or put it to drop bears, it's like, you've got to go for that goal. Hey?
Yeah, you have to want to win too, the whole thing.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to like, it's like, yeah, we want to win. Everyone says we want to win. But it's like, if you actually sit down and have like a proper goal set, like with Ground Zero, the first season, or with Heist, sorry, which is now Ground Zero, the first season we had with them, the first thing I said was like, what is our actual goal here? And it was like, I want to make it to the grand finals without losing like a regular season match. That was like the goal that I set. And all of a sudden, all of their minds were like, fuck, man, that's a big goal. Like, you kidding? Bus hasn't even won a game in contenders, and you want him to go to grand finals, dude? And so I think, and you watched, like, obviously it was like the way they spoke and their tone of voice was like all of a sudden they wanted to bring this goal down a little bit,
Yeah.
and it was like eventually we settled on, you know, we just want to make it to LAN. That was now their goal. Like, even though my goal was like I wanted to get to grand finals, I remember them bringing that down like a smidge and being like, let's just go to LAN, because like grand finals was at the time was too big, and that's fair enough. Like, you know, that's fine, but at least they weren't sitting there saying we're going to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, they were honest, and it's like I think that made a really big difference in that season for trying to, like, especially when it came to like playoffs, they realized how close they were to, you know, finally getting their goal. And so, you know, by all means, I think one person thought we were going to win that playoff match. I don't remember who it was. Might have been Ducky. I think out of Ducky, Avril, and there was a third one. I forget. Wasn't Elfish Guy, was it?
On the
I don't know.
board.
They did like a playoffs prediction. And there was like three of them. Yeah. Either way, it was like Ducky. I know it was Ducky, Avril, and someone. And Ducky went for us, and the other two went for blank. And like the other two were saying like blank are gonna 3-0 us, and Ducky's like, I think they might win like, you know, 3-2. And like the guys just went out there and absolutely demolished them. Like, that was the most dominant game against blank.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't think you guys were going to win either, to be honest.
not a lot of people did.
Yeah.
But I think, like, again, going back is like, we set the goal, and once they realized how close they were to it, it was like just a whole other level of like improvement and play on the day. So, and everyone was just so laser focused. Like, I've never seen a team go the entire game without usually missing one or two like ult tracks. I don't think I heard jungle be more fucking on top of that in my entire life. It was insane. So, yeah. And then obviously we went to LAN and got absolutely crushed.
Oh,
You know?
well, didn't get crushed that hard. I think.
No, we did.
Okay,
I think Hanamura was like okay.
Yeah,
Hanamura
was okay.
the other two maps we got crushed. I won't lie. But yeah, LAN is just a different animal. Like, people that can perform on like a LAN stage are either super experienced or have absolute balls of steel. Like, they just do. Like Bertlog, like that Bertlog and Shoyo, like
They turned to another different being.
for guys who kind of like on face value seem like kind of what's the word? What's the opposite of extroverted? Introverted?
Introverted, yeah.
For guys that kind of like face value look a little bit introverted, they're like, they got some cojones, dude. Like, they just don't care. Like, I thought Bertlog was gonna be super nice, and I was like, and like Duboy was like kind of struggling with the nerves. I was like, Bertlog, when you went to your first lane, you were a little bit worried, weren't you? He was like, nah, I fucking crushed my first lane, and then walked away. And I was like, oh no,
Holy shit.
why did I talk to Bertlog? Or he said something along those lines. I don't think that was the exact word, but he basically like stared Duboy down and went, nah. I was like,
That's
oh
part
no.
of the strategy.
Yeah. Oh god. And ironically, like Duboy was probably struggled the most going into that LAN, and then when we all sat down at the computers on the stage, Duboy had like the strongest voice I had ever heard him have, like throughout the entire season. He was the most calm out of everyone that like sat down. That was like an insane. Like, Duboy just switches,
He was a little
flicks
bit
the switch.
sick before the LAN as well, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. He was not having a good time. Oh, he was. He just was nervous, I think.
Yeah.
You know, he was a little bit young at the time, so. But no, he's good now. He's good now. I think he's got like sort of a process down. So, you know, he'll be. To be honest, he'll be good this season. I think he'll be quite good. I think his like confidence is like, even though we got kind of crushed last season, I think his confidence has gone through the roof.
That's good.
So, yeah. But yeah, other than that, and then obviously went through ground zero. We had the whole oily fiasco, which is good fun.
Yeah.
Not much to say on that, I don't think. Just that it sucked. Sucked for everyone involved. Um, got my first map win against the Mavericks. Sucked in winter, you suck. I was so happy with that map win, dude. Like, I know we lost 3-1, but like, um, obviously emotions were running high, and so forgive me, Mavs. But after we beat that, I like screamed into the microphone that they fucking sucked. I was like, my coaching like face was just out the window, dude. Oh,
The whole
I was
facade.
just the facade was gone. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
That's great.
But yeah, I mean that was honestly, I don't think anyone realizes kind of what happened to us that season. Nor do we. We don't really have a good answer for it either. I don't think. I think that was just, you know, I think that was probably the worst season I've had as like a leader. I think Whipley would probably say the same. We performed pretty piss poorly for a 6 or 7 guys who kind of give it their all each day. So that was that kind of sucked for us, and you know I don't exactly know 100% what they're doing for this season. Um, but yeah, they'll honestly, like, I hope no one underestimates them going into next season, because coming sixth is like not a representation of like how good they can be.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's just not. So we'll see what we can get up to next season for them for sure.
Yeah, poor lads. Because I know, especially like Dowser, how passionate that guy is.
Yeah,
He's like probably the most passionate person I've met in Overwatch.
absolutely. He's
definitely up there.
he was I mean the whole team was like pretty devastated when Mindfreak beat us, but I think Dowsey was probably the most confused and distraught about like what had just happened. Because I mean, straight up props to Davey and Mindfreak. Like, Davey played out of his mind, Mindfreak played out of their mind, but you know, even like we should have been so far ahead of them that even on our worst day we should have still beaten them.
Yeah.
But clearly that's not the truth anymore. So we need to be more careful, and I think other teams need to be more careful of Mindfreak now as well. Joel's really starting to come into his own. So Joel and TC.
Well, you've sort of put a little bit of a point of reference there, in like acknowledging that you've been to LAN and then coming to obviously the last season that it wasn't, well, you class as your worst performance in terms of your career.
Yeah.
Sorry, sausage rolls coming up
Sure.
from this morning.
No, you're right.
Like, personally, for as a coach, how do you, or how do you think that reflects on your personal performance? Like, comparing, like, was there something differently you were doing in your more successful season that you weren't doing, for example, in this season, or is there just a sort of different player atmosphere or expectations? Because there's obviously a lot of variables, and you said that it is like quite trivial to pin it down. But if you were to pin it down on yourself as a person and looking at what you've done as a coach.
Yeah. No, look, I think there was definitely a few things. So the season before, obviously when I was coaching for Goats and First Gen, my whole day was basically revolving around Overwatch from literally 6 in the morning till 11, 12 at night. And I think that just made me so much more focused on what I was supposed to be doing, and um, I was kind of had so much work that it was, with the amount of time that I had, it was kind of easy to get through it, but it was also, I could use so many different resources to do it with. And then being able to do it full time, or having that ability to do it full time, was definitely like a really big factor in that I could sit down with the players who maybe had the day off from work, or weren't at school that day, or whatever it might be, and I can do just an hour, 2 hour, POV session with them, mentality sessions with them. And that was pretty constant. Everyone had, one a week, and that I felt was a really big help for them. Especially if one of them was feeling down, it was so much easier to kind of turn around and be like, you could figure it out so quickly, and kind of just spend half an hour, 45 talking about what's going on, how are you feeling, do you feel like you're struggling, and for someone like Locus and I, who were both pretty big on that kind of, I guess, self-improvement phase where it's like reading books, doing certain strategies throughout the day. Like I know Locus meditates every day for like half an hour, for example. In the zone. Like that guy does so much stuff to like keep himself in the zone. It's nuts. But we could sit down and talk for like 2 hours about mentality stuff, and I think that that aspect was really helpful to him and helpful to me as well. Like it worked both ways. And then someone like Bus, who's kind of really well versed in understanding like the macro side of things, that he does that so much, or he's done that so much in the past, that his micro often like kind of fell off a little bit because he's so busy worrying about where is the rest of my team, because he was playing on teams like Bin Chicken and lower.
Yeah.
That he was the coach, the leader, he was everything, and so to come to this team where he's kind of got a lot of that taken off his shoulders, we did have to stepping up his micro was really important to him. Things like shield management, when he can swing, when he's being greedy, he improved phenomenally on. And to be honest, like he's still got a ways to go, but the difference from benching as to when he ended Heist was insane. He was getting offers for trials from all sorts of teams. Whereas, so that was, I think doing that for him was incredible. Jungle Jazz and I just used to shoot. Jungle Jazz is incredibly smart. I just needed to get him in a room and he would do it all for me. But the point is, I think it was like, not that Jungle doesn't do it on his own, it was that he would do it in front of me, and then if there was something that I felt he was wrong on, it was immediately a conversation. And so things like that was a massive deal that I could do when I was doing it when I was doing coaching just full time. As well as I could use resources from Goats, and I can be like, look, this is what Nomi does, this is what Tensor does, incredible NA players, and they got to look at those resources with me and be like, oh, okay, fair enough, like this is why they do that. Two different teams, but they could still take things from each other.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas going into this season, obviously if you don't work, money starts running out. You've got bills to pay. So, I had a lot of my days spent on, creating a business, making money somewhere else other than Ground Zero. Because as much as pay from esports is really good, and it's you get paid for doing something you love, you can't live on that pay. It'll pay some bills and it'll help towards some bills, but at the moment in our particular scene, like I know different story for different esports, like League of Legends, I'm pretty sure they can live on their salaries to a decent amount now, but we're just not at that place, No way. And that to be honest, in Australia, that may never happen for Overwatch. In Australia, we're a very tough market to break into, and I think League has done. Considering League's been around for like 10 years now in Australia, it's like, we're still considered a small region in the world aspect or the world view of things. So Overwatch to get there, I think, has got an extremely long way, and I've got bills at the end of the day. I've got rent that I pay. I've got a girlfriend that I want to take out to dinner, stuff like that. If you want to go on esports, don't get a girlfriend. They cost money, dude. I mean, so do I, but but yeah, and I think that was like, it took so much of my time away that when I was sitting there, and I know people can do it. I 100% know people can do it. Like I know, perfect example was what's his name? The Philadelphia, not the Dallas Fuel head coach. Aero.
Arrow.
Oh God, I've forgotten his name. Arrow, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember his full name, Aaron Atkinson, for some reason, but couldn't remember his in-game name.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, when he was at Fusion, I think it's because his YouTube's like his first name or something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so when he was coaching at like Fusion Uni, he was working full time, so I know it can be done. I think the biggest thing for me is that I'm not, because I'm realistically not the most talented player, I'm also my game knowledge is quite low unless I keep up with it unless I keep up with it in terms of like watching VODs, in terms of doing, you know, a whole lot of things and spending a lot of time like making sure I'm up to date and I understand it. And I think it takes me much longer to, you know, understand the way that goats interacts with each other, for example, than it does someone like RQT, who the man's brilliant. You know, I can tell my team that this is what's going to be meta because I've watched 1,000 games that's what meta is. But then, once RQT figures out that that's what's going to be meta, he'll beat me in terms of the fact of he can figure out how they should work together better than what I can.
Yeah.
And you saw that in like the finals. Like you look at how Adam was playing, and things that seem simple once you see it, but I'm personally quite bad at creating those scenarios where it's like Adam dives the aim support whenever the Brig's not there. It makes sense as I say it, but to actually like go along and like figure that out and create that in your head, without seeing anyone else do that. I mean, he's a talented person. He just is. And I think, for that reason, when I'm not putting in, super hard hours and putting in kind of like the hard work grind, if that makes sense, I do think I struggle a bit in comparison to the better coaches and the better, the top two sort of coaches. I think in contenders generally, I'll hold my own. I think I'll always be sort of an average level contenders coach, and I think the fact that I could only put in so much time into it really made that distinctive this season in terms of my own performance. Yeah. So I think going from one season to the other, that's definitely the biggest thing. Is like, I wasn't able to work as hard as I normally do, and yeah, I think we really got punished for it. To be honest, I think we really got punished for that in a big way, and I think, there were definitely some sort of internal issues that propped up that definitely hurts like the mentality things that I probably should have handled better. And, everyone has internal issues. When you spend so much time together. So there were definitely some things that I probably could have and should have handled better. And yeah, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. It doesn't matter now. It is what it is. You just got to learn from it and move on. Really.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, especially with coaching, man. Because I feel like a lot of coaches, the best ones at least, constantly reevaluate themselves. And try to figure out, okay, especially like with the example that you said with RQT, right? In order to become a great innovator, you need to figure out what works and what doesn't. And if you're innovating, it's a 50-50 shot, right? Like you're creating it out of your own laboratory. It could either poison you or it could make you into the Hulk. That's how it works. And like you could look like a complete fool. Like, I mean, Order have been like pretty, I would say standard in what they've achieved this season, and like they've played pretty consistent comps, but like they do things differently in their comps, like in terms of innovation. Whilst like like a couple of seasons ago, they had like that Bastion and Uber strategy that they weren't afraid of pulling off, and they like ended up winning that map as well.
Yeah.
And it does take a lot of balls as well, man, because like you not only have to convince yourself, you have to convince the players. And if you have some sort of wacky shit that you're trying to pull off, your players like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're honestly gonna try this shit, and you try it once, and like they fail hard, and you're like, right, no, you should have done this, should have done this. And the player's like, no, this is just shit. Like it's just it's just a battle,
Yeah. Players have brains of their own, and sometimes it's like you bring out the wacky things. The moment you hear, you're like, oh, they don't believe in it at all.
Yeah. As soon as you hear the hesitation.
I remember I had a strat on Blizzard World, and it was basically it didn't make any sense to the way that the map's designed, but it was basically you walk up from first, you get to like where the first point is, and you know how everyone kind of from the attacker's perspective, they go left towards like where the snacks is. Yeah. Basically, my plan was simple. It was fake left, speed right, and take the high ground behind them. And the first thing out of their words was like, What? Because it's like you're meant to just be held there because it's such a skinny choke. It's
Yeah.
not meant to make any sense. The first time we ever did it was we fake left, we went right, and I think it was Geordie was like, "Oh, they're going left," and so he tried to flank, and because we sped right, we caught him. And he's just in the chat, Geordie's just like question marks because no one does that, and it's like
That's fucking great, dude.
it works well, but like every single time we ran it, someone was like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know, but it went well. But like for every one of those is people will have 100 fails on it. So you're 100% right. Innovating is like it is a hard thing to do sometimes, and it does depend a lot on the players that you have, and sometimes you can take it too far, and you do things like I don't know what's a good example. Taking something too far is like I don't know. Blank has played some absolutely wacky stuff.
Or like,
Um,
Mavs this season. I've been playing, or last season, I should say, like
mm,
playing Hanzo comps without Lazario, and
yeah.
and they looked like a little bit weird on that. And I remember like RQT questioned it. He's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, because it just doesn't. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense, and some of them are really bad, and it's like another aspect to your point of like a really great coach is knowing when to bail on something that's just not working. Like cut it off. It's your idea is shit. Give it up. So
swallow the pill. It's like fuck.
exactly. And there's heaps of those. There's heaps of those around. There's every good coach has 1,000 of them. And, I think to an extent, being innovative is awesome, but there does need to be some understanding of like what the most optimal comp is and what's gonna be cheesy at the end of the day. And and that's another reason why Order's done so well is like you look at their comps and they are the GOAT's one trick. They haven't really run anything else this season. But at the same time, they're so ahead of everyone that even if you try and cheese them, they just know how the comp works. They know, if you're playing, double poke or double spam or whatever it might be, you look at how they're playing. They're not hiding. They're still up in your face because they know if they hide, they're going to lose because too much spam. And you look at other teams who try and verse spam comps, and even myself, even our own team is, our game plan for Blank was don't hide, just do not hide. But the idea around, we need to live, and by living we hide, or to live we should hide. It's like sometimes it's just too strong for people. Oasis is a perfect example. Everyone that plays goats and has to verse a double spam will always hide in halls, and that's exactly what we did. And the last thing I said to them before they went into that game was, do not hide. You come out together, you attack someone. And it's like, we just didn't do that. And we were completely punished for it. It was like, so it's hard, Things are, when something sounds backwards, it's really hard to get your players to do it because they're smart people at the end of the day. They know what they're doing. It's just hard. So yeah.
Alright, so sort of relating. Well, of course, everything's sort of been about coaching this episode.
Yeah.
But you did have a time, of course, coaching the American teams, or a couple American teams.
Yep.
So comparing both environments, because of course, infrastructure wise, America's like a lot more consistent. Not only in terms of like the money, but in terms of maybe perhaps mentality and players actually wanting to do this because they know they can actually do it for a living.
Yep.
In terms of just the general environment, how would you compare OCE to NA when you're interacting with the players? Is there much of a difference? Because of course there's like culture involved too.
Interacting with the players. So on my team on 1G, we had what was it? I think we had 2 Danish players, 2 Mexican players or South American players, sorry, and two American players in the end. Yeah. So the ones from the Denmark players were really open to understanding what you were trying to say, but if they would hear you out no matter what it was. But the moment they disagreed after you finished your sentence, they would rip into you like no tomorrow. They would absolutely rip into you. Which was actually like, at the time, was a bit of a culture shock because we're a lot more like Americans in the way that we do, in the way that we talk and interact with each other. It's almost like that they get pissed off if you interrupt them. Basically, like it seems to be like it's rude here to interrupt someone, right? Depending on the scenario. But there, it's like a crime. Like, at the moment, I think I interrupted one person once, and it was like he didn't talk to me for like the rest of the scrim. Like Zachary was so annoyed at me that I had interrupted him. And it wasn't until I sat down and spoke with him that I was like, "What was that?" Like he wouldn't even talk to me. He's like, "You cut me off," and I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And it was like you just got to have that understanding, and I think Americans and South Americans, they were quite similar in the way that they spoke, because I think both of them had spent time in America anyway, so they kind of were a bit more accustomed to how it all worked over there. So Nomi, who's like 27, he's very mature. He was obviously came down from the Overwatch League. He's very respectful towards his coaches. He will tell you if you're wrong for sure. But he will always make sure that like he understands what you're trying to say before he says his point, which I think is he sat, obviously unfortunately he's not in the Overwatch League anymore, and he sat on the bench for the last probably 3 months of his contract or something under Super. But he also had time under Krusty. He spent 3 months just listening to Krusty in scrims and sitting there not doing a whole lot. But I think that bringing that experience down was just so eye-opening to how, I would constantly ask him questions about how Krusty did things, because, why wouldn't I? You've got, over here we have, with the exception of like some players being able to talk to Gumba and Color Hex and, Trill as well, we really don't have any good connections to the Overwatch League. Yeah, again, there's Gumba, but he's one man. He's busy. He's a busy man. Whereas over there, it's a completely different story. They have so much connection to anyone in the Overwatch League. All the questions, like, if you had an hour to talk to Color Hex and Gumba to talk about everything strategy-wise, you'd get a lot out of it. Imagine being able to do that times however many coaches there are in the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
Like,
be nuts.
Oh, we've got John Gold as well. Sorry, can't forget Johnny Boy. But it's just so they have so many more resources than what we have, and I'm sure there's some players here and some coaches here that do get to talk to more than just Gumba. But over there, it's like we were constantly versing, Overwatch League teams in the preseason of Overwatch League. We were constantly versing. Or constantly had like Overwatch League coaches sitting on us. It's just the wealth of knowledge that can flow through, that can trickle down there, just happens so much faster than anywhere near us. So it's very different over there in terms of like how much knowledge you can get your hands on. Over there at the time, everyone was still kind of figuring out goats, even the Overwatch League teams. Yeah. So anyone with any connections to EU were miles ahead. So like, who was it? I think we had not, what was his name? The English head coach of Philadelphia Fusion. He sat in once, and he basically ripped us a new one. But he sat in with us because he knew the Denmark players.
Oh, okay.
So that's that was honestly like a really amazing experience, and it was very eye-opening to see like really where are you, because over here it's so easy for you to lose track of like you compare yourself to Gumba, Noxious, Sword, Joel. It's like where are you in comparison to those 4 people, and it's like there's only so far comparing yourself to, no offense, but like myself or to Joel or to Sword will actually get you, because they're in the OCE scene, exactly. And we're here for a reason. You know what I mean? Um, whereas like in NA, it's like you're not just comparing yourself to like the NA coaches. You get to compare yourself to, the NA coaches plus the OWL coaches. So like, how far behind am I from, Krusty? I can tell you, I'm miles behind. I'm nowhere near him. That's how far behind I am. How far behind am I to, um, Spazzo or I forget his name, but the coach of Fusion University. It's like you kind of really get to start figuring that stuff out, and that's really like anyone who's in OCE who wants to kind of go to OWL or anything like that. Like this is going to suck for the OCE scene, but you have to leave OCE. You have to go to EU. You have to go to NA. NA is like way better than EU, but you have to get there to really kind of open your eyes and figure out where you are. There's just no, some people go straight from OCE to, OWL, like John Galt. I have no idea how he did it, to be fair.
I know how he did it.
You know how he did it?
Well, he did say it, he did say it publicly. So like, there is a short little story about this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it is quite funny, Choc. So basically, from my understanding, there was because I'm pretty sure I believe his name is Deepe.
Yeah. The head coach for Gladiators?
Head coach of Gladiators. He told me. He said on the Oversight podcast this story, and John Galt told me this story. So basically, the gist of it was that they were holding trialing sessions for various other coaches, and some of them had very high like ranking without within like the community, and being within better. A lot of them were like from NA and stuff like that, so they obviously had a better default standing. And John Galt was on like the bottom of the list, and so they thought, oh, yeah, we'll check this guy out. And I think like the general gist of like this trial was that they were trialing main tanks or something for gladiators, and they wanted to have these guys come in to see like which ones were the best. They had like 3 main tanks, and they were asking each coach like, oh, so what do you think about this one? What do you think about this one? What do you think about this one?
Yeah.
And like for the like every single coach but John Galt we're like, okay, this player's good, but this player's good, but this. John Galt was like, okay, this player's good, and then for like the third player, it's like, this guy shouldn't even be considered trialing. He's trash. It's like it wasn't like he's good, but this. It was like, don't even consider him. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like he had that like confidence about him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he stood out in that manner because he has some pretty advanced analytical skills. But yeah, that's a short story.
No, okay, fair enough. But I suppose it's like the fact that he was even brought up to trial at LA Gladiators is like, that in itself is an accomplishment, really. Yeah. Like I do know that usually, the top 2 teams in kind of all the regions do get looked at, for NA academies, and because they've got to be doing something right. And if you're a coach, it's like, sometimes the player's ability isn't a direct reflection, depending on the people you have. Like for example, that's going to be mean if I say that. I'll say it anyway.
Go for it.
Noxious is a really good coach. I'll get that out of the way first. He's an incredible coach. The players he had last season were also incredible players. They just were. With or without Noxious there, they were incredible players. I'm sure Noxious helped, and the strategies he's had were great, and he still got them to win this season. He still won. That's it. Yeah. But the question then becomes is like, would I have still won if I was coaching Drop Bears? Would Joel have won if he was coaching Drop Bears at the time? It's like, that starts to become the question. I mean, eventually you're going to be like, no, that person, X person who's coaching bottom tier open div team wouldn't have won. Like, it just wouldn't have happened. But those players are so smart and they're so good, and they went to the World Cup for a reason. They're the World Cup squad. And Face, who was coaching them and had been helping them like decently throughout the season, was like, he is an amazing coach. He just is. The fact that he's not coaching NA Academy or an OWL right now is a tragedy. Because of what happened with NRG.
Yeah.
But, I think Drop Bears, it's not fair to me to say they would have won regardless of who was at their helm. That's not fair. I think it is fair to me to say that they would have made at least top 2 regardless who was there. I think that's probably a fair assessment.
Yeah.
And I think nothing really changed. Oh, I guess something did change, but they went in this season and it was like, again, they're still incredible players. They're still really good players. Yes, they have some motivation issues this season, and maybe that didn't help them in terms of like the grand final. But they still made it. You know what I mean? It's like they put a brand new NA coach who, as far as I'm personally, I might be wrong with this. I haven't fact checked this, so someone go and fact check it. But as far as I'm aware, he had coached 1 season of Contenders, and came over here and went with Drop Bears and took them to the grand final. It's like, again, that team is so good and was kind of so far ahead of everyone except for like, maybe Blank, Order, and they're probably still pretty far ahead of Mavs at the time. But again, it's like, who else could you put at the helm and still made it? I think a decent chunk of people would have still been able to get them there, even if they didn't bring that new coach in from NA. I still think Noxious could have taken them to the grand final for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I think while they would get looked at, it's from where we are, it's to get to OWL, to make that massive jump from AU to OWL is like pretty ridiculous. Especially, the longer it goes on, the harder that'll be. But even getting to NA academies, it's like there are so many good coaches out there that it's from regions that are better. That our little region, it is hard to get trials, let alone get into a team. So Maid's, it's not impossible. Maid's done it.
Yeah.
Maid had to go and do it for free over in NA for a while.
And sleepless nights. He really did.
Sleepless nights. The poor man. I remember him like having a chat with him. He was like, "Actually, I've got to get up in like 3 hours, so I might go to bed." It's like, what? What are you doing, mate? Just go to bed. You madman. But and now he's got a fair bit of clout. He's got experience, and he's doing really well for himself over at Gladiators Legion.
So there you go. In order to be a successful coach from OC, you need to sacrifice yourself.
Sacrifice, go to NA, do whatever it takes. Get to NA Contenders.
Yeah.
Get to NA Contenders. 100%. I actually think it was a mistake for any NA coach that came over here, with the exception of Sword, because I understand what Sword was doing. It was a mistake, in my opinion, for any NA coach to come over to Australian Contenders and coach one of our teams, regardless of whether it was Drop Bears or Mavs or Blank, or if it's if you came and coached Ground Zero or whatever. In my opinion, it's a mistake. Because while you might find it, they'll find it easier to go back to NA because they're obviously from NA. They have probably lost in terms of like net gain of where they could be in terms of a really clout, because that's what you need to like go places. You need people to know who you are and what you're doing, and you've lost way more coming here than you did staying there.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a fact. Even with Sword, like, the thing is, Sword just wanted to do things part time basically when he first came to Blank. But if he could have done that with someone in NA, that, in my opinion, that would be better for him. But Blank has the money to provide an experience that even some NA teams can't do. So
yeah.
I understand why he was there. But yeah, you really just, if you need to take baby steps, get to NA. Any way you can. Get to NA Contenders. Any way you can.
Alright.
It is such a big difference in terms of how close you are, and you don't realize that till you're there. Like, I think a lot of people maybe do now, but yeah, I didn't realize how close you actually are to these OWL teams, to these Contenders teams, until you start doing it. So.
Alright. Well, putting that into context, actually, I think a good question for you, Choco, will be, okay, so obviously Overwatch League is planning on having a massive system with their geolocation around the world, having home stadiums. So let's say if Australia gets a team in a year or two so's time, is that going to be a sort of new foundation of young up and coming players coming into the scene? Will it assist in having a better sort of system for us all up? Because we were talking about this before, and that, Overwatch is not going to be, well, not it's not that it's not going to be successful, but
Mm.
it's very, very slow, especially in this region. So
Yep.
if let's say we end up getting an Overwatch League slot in a year or two time, do you think that will make a significant difference, or do you feel like it's just still going to be this sort of stale erosion?
I think we're gonna struggle to ever get an Overwatch League team for starters.
Okay.
I think just from a business perspective,
Oh yeah, I agree.
it's a super poor investment for us because of how small our market is. Like you look at you really look at the teams who kind of get to go overseas for the stuff that they do, and it's like, yeah, it's not many. I can tell you that much. And if they do go overseas, they're based in NA most of the time.
To be fair, Overwatch League do make some poor investments, so this is not
Yeah, okay, fair
that's
enough.
not out of their ball range here.
Fair enough. Look, I think if we do get a team, do I think it'll help? Probably not, because they'll probably be a team based in NA anyway. They might come back here to play, but they'll probably be based in NA with the rest of them.
Yeah.
I think the way I mean, I honestly haven't looked too much into it, but I would say, in terms of like an educated guess, the way that that's going to work is that teams are not going to have a home base that they sleep in and practice in, because that wouldn't make sense. I would say most teams are going to stay on the West Coast in LA and have all their housings, have like their hubs there. They're close to the Blizzard office. They're close to each other when they scrim. I don't think there'll ever be an Overwatch League team. You could maybe make an argument for China, depending on how many teams go back there, or how many teams they end up getting. But I don't think any Overwatch League team will really like stay at home. And as long as there's that time zone difference, there will always be the issue of connecting with the owl coaches. In terms of when we scrim,
Yeah.
for example. I think that we will always struggle to an extent because of the way that Contenders is set up. Not the Overwatch League, just Contenders. And I think it does escape a lot of people's minds, and you can tell this just by talking to them. At the end of the day, Overwatch Contenders is meant to be the minor league. Like, if you compare it to minor league baseball, NBA D League, or whatever it's called now, G League with Gatorade. Even like, anyone that's involved, like, enjoys watching, Australian soccer, the A League. The equivalent is the MPL,
yeah.
which per game gets 40 viewers. So it's like, we're doing well, but I think people do forget that it's like, not only are you the minor league for you are minor league for like Overwatch League. In OCE, you are the minor league for the minor league in terms of NA. Like
that is the best quote I've heard. That's so fucking on point.
It's just is what it is, and it's like that sucks, but that's the reality that Australia has in terms of the market that we've got. It sucks. It just does, but there's, every time that you guys play a game and you guys put in a good performance and you turn up to IEM and we get things like that, it's a step forward. It's awesome. It's really good. But as of right now, if you were looking to go to the Overwatch League in the next year, for example, or next 6 months, or do what Color Hex did and jump from AU to Boston on Uprising, it's a slim chance. And like, that sucks to hear. It's not impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible. If that's your dream, please fucking do it and grind for it every single day. Like, if that's your dream to go from like where you are now in Australia to the Overwatch League, do it. Like, go fucking hard. But if there's a chance to go to NA, and it's like an NA Trials team or an NA Contenders team, fucking go. And invest in yourself to go do it. Like, our Danish players, we literally scrounged up any money we could and bought tickets for them to come over to NA and so that it wouldn't be on a ping disadvantage. Like that's the kind of dedication that those people are putting in just to get to NA. And it's like they'll literally slept on like someone's couch for like 6 months to do it. Like the amount of dedication they put in is like insane. And so for us to be like the minor league of the minor leagues and people saying, yeah, I'm going to go to the Overwatch League and they're fucking playing RuneScape on the side is like, you're not going to the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
Like the amount of work you're putting in does not correlate to your dream. It's like fucking, there are people who don't do 1 hour of self-VOD reviews a day. And it's like, but I'm going to the Overwatch League. Like, you're fucking not.
No, you don't.
Like, we don't have any connections. We're the minor league to the minor league, and you're not putting in the work. So that took a dark turn. It just did. I'm as much as I don't think it's impossible, I'm not massively optimistic on people relying on like our situation to improve. I think in the current players that we have in our lifespan, I think there'll definitely be more that go over there. But I think people like myself, people potentially even like Yuki, who are kind of like, we're kind of 25 and older, I think we're going to, you're going to see us start to drop off much quicker because we're going to start getting that realization that it's like, it may not happen. There are definitely coaches older than me. There's like a 30-year-old in the Overwatch League who just got picked up. Like, it can be done. You know what I mean? But I think, personally, it's like, I didn't go back to NA because I started to run out of money and I couldn't put in the time. And then, realistically, for myself, what I should have done is once I got that position in NA, I should have basically left the team. That would have been like the optimal scenario for like my career personally.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. That was my choice. I was like, yeah, I'll stay with the team. But anyone who's like, this is where I'm going, go to NA. Anything that you can do, go to NA. Do what Nelly did and sub for goats. Like, get your name there and be good at what you do. And like, even if you're just a sub, like turn up to every practice, constantly ask the coach questions, get better than the guy in front of you. It's like, you just got to do that kind of stuff, I think. Unless you're in, the other alternative is like you're in order and you're coming first and going to this Chinese, Pacific showdown, which is huge. That'll be the biggest thing to ever happen to the Australian scene.
Yeah.
That'll be the biggest. The fact that like, you get to see Unter and Jordation against like O2 and potentially Element Mystic or whoever is in front of them is like, that's massive, man. Like that'll be the biggest thing to ever happen to this scene.
Yeah, definitely, by far.
Yeah. So.
And like, admittedly as well, because Order are a very vocal team. Like they probably will be shit talking, which is which is actually fantastic for our scene.
I'm pretty sure I've already seen Unter's memes, dude.
Yeah, dude, he has posted a couple of good ones already. And what people need to realize is, especially with esports, if you're not going to sort of succeed as a player and you still want to be within esports, developing yourself with some sort of online personality needs to be a factor too, right?
Yep.
Like, because
100%.
you've ventured, like you said yourself, right? You've owned a team, you've been a coach, like, from a few different perspectives. Like if you want to be sort of in esports and you want to develop yourself as a person, I mean, how many people in OC wear multiple hats? Like the amount of times like people have been like, oh, I'm a player and I so happen to own a team too. Like there's just so many people that have sort of multiple like dots on their current resume. It's like, I do this, this, and this in esports. Because if you sell yourself to one thing and it fucks up, it's like, whoa, you can become irrelevant so quickly. I mean, that's what I tried to do, like straight after I exited coaching for a bit. It's like, okay, I need to do overtime more often, which I'm not doing at the moment.
Yeah,
But like I have my own podcast and make content. But
yeah,
I like you need to make sure you're constantly in the loop of something. Otherwise, it's so easy to become irrelevant, man. Like,
yeah.
but
No, I agree for sure.
especially like we'll use Twitter as like a flat example, right? So I'd probably say around 80% of the people that I have on Twitter are like from the Overwatch community.
Yep.
So everything that I do say is most likely going to be like brought upon towards an Overwatch person within
Mm.
the scene, right? So if I'm trying to make a productive outline of myself and trying to promote myself, do I talk about Overwatch more often? As a person who doesn't really do Overwatch stuff anymore, like it's
Yeah,
difficult to attempt to grow myself because that is realistically the audience that I've presented myself in, right? And it's
correct.
difficult to stray from that. So that's why like I encourage like players and like for example a person like yourself that has been around the bush to like stretch out your legs a little bit and have fun with it because otherwise like no one wants to fucking like hire a boring ass dude that just like says nothing and like is not marketable whatsoever, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
That, that's the other thing is like I think Dave Harris, the guy who owns Sydney Drop Bears, I think the best piece of advice he ever gave me, like I had like a quick like 5 minute meeting with him after like MEO. And the best piece of advice he ever gave us was right now you're not an esports team. You're a marketing company. And it's like
Yeah,
when you think about it, realistically it's like at least from our perspective in Overwatch, like obviously different esports are very different and it was basically it made so much sense. It's like you're never going to make any money winning the tournament because at the end of the day, most of the organizations, not all of them, most organizations give all of their money to their players, all the prize winning.
yep.
Some might keep 10%, some might keep 15. I've heard of some obviously organizations who, in my opinion, are kind of shit. Keep all of it. The star. Um, but yeah, it's like so you don't make money off your players' winnings. That's not the point because realistically, it's like if you're taking any money out of that winning out of those winnings to yourself, you're probably going to end up giving it back to the players anyway in terms of salary.
Yeah.
Like money needs to come from somewhere. It's like you look at the top teams. It's like they're definitely getting paid some amount of money. They're not doing it for free from their organizations as well as the prize money. And so you really need to think to yourself like, where are you going to get this money to pay the salary? For me, when I had Pixel, the money, like the only salary I could offer the players was my services as a coach. That was it. No one on Pixel got paid, like except for like obviously their pay, like their Blizzard payments.
Yeah.
In terms of like the prize money, they got all of that. But I didn't get any money. I don't get any prize money. Glenn didn't make any money. It's because you need to make money by being an influencer. That's basically what an esports brand is. It's a big influencer brand.
Yep.
Like, sorry if that shatters people's conceptions, but even realistically, it's like you look at traditional, like I hate the word traditional sports, but you look at like the Parramatta Eels for us being in Western Sydney.
Yep.
They don't. I don't know how the contracts works, but I'm pretty sure they're not making money off the players winning games when old mate's being paid $250,000. It's like, same with the Overwatch League. It's like or maybe the Overwatch League is like a big stockpiles of money, but when Sinatra's getting paid Mr. 250K, it's like, they're not. How much money are they really making back off 6 players who are getting paid 100K above?
Yeah.
Not much. So it's like your money needs to come from marketing. So as a player, you should be doing that yourself, for sure. And that twofold is like one, potentially brands actually come to you. Like I would be like maybe not. Hunters can be a little bit. Hunter's memes can sometimes go far, but
I mean, to be fair, he could get in trouble and fuck up a few sponsorships.
yeah. But let's just say like as a personal player, let's say like he's got. I actually don't know how many followers he's got on Twitter. I'd say it'd be around 1,000. Let's say he's got like 5,000, and then I don't know, someone like, I think there are rules around the Overwatch in terms of what personal sponsors you can get and stuff like that. But let's just say hypothetically, I don't know, who are they sponsored by? Is it Logitech, Order,
Order?
or Alienware?
One of
I
them.
think it's Alienware. Let's just say Alienware goes like bypasses Order and goes straight to like Unta for some reason. This probably wouldn't happen, but let's just say it did. And they're like, yeah, we want you to promote our keyboard, and we'll pay you $1,000 for it. It's like brands will do that if you've got enough following and you're active enough and you're engaging enough. It's like you should be trying to do that anyway. Like,
Yeah.
that stuff's fun to make something, and look at all the stuff that Unta puts out, and I think Joker puts out a fair bit as well. He's another guy in our community. And it's great. It's like they should be doing that kind of stuff, and in turn, like, one, potentially you get a sponsorship. Unlikely if you got 100 followers or 300 like me. I got no one. I'm not getting a sponsorship. But someone like, again, I'll just keep saying Unta. I don't know why. If he gets to 5,000, for example, he gets maybe a brand sponsorship, personal one, where he just like helps someone out. Maybe he gets a code and it's like 5% off, and he gets some sort of amount of money to that. Plus, he starts getting known in other regions like NA and EU, and people probably want him. You know what I mean? It's like one of the biggest reasons, well, a big reason that Made was so like pushed to get another coaching role in NA was because, one, he performed excellently over there, but two, he's so popular over there now. He just is, and he put out a lot of things, and he went on a lot of podcasts, and he still pushed. He actively goes out and says, I'll be a guest on your podcast if you want me. He collaborates with everyone.
Yeah.
It's like you can only do that for so long before you start getting a lot more opportunities. And so, as a player, as a coach, yeah, you should definitely be going and doing that kind of stuff. Even yourself, you continue doing this for long enough, you get a bigger audience. You'll start looking at NA people. Eventually, you won't be interviewing people like me anymore. You'll be interviewing bloody Sinatra and Super and Bumper if you can get a Korean translator. Like it'll happen. It's just you just got to keep going. And yeah, so doing stuff like this for sure, I'm big advocate for. Big advocate. But most people won't do that. That's the thing. Like, a lot of people won't do it. So again, do it. If you're listening to it, just fucking do it.
Just do it, yeah.
Do it. Even John Gold, actually, and all of his Reddit posts.
John Gold makes a shit ton of content.
Yeah,
that guy is a work machine.
And he's nuts. Like he does, like, it can be about anything. I remember seeing one, and it was like, how far behind is Australia really? And I think like the first half of it is him basically shitting on OCE, and the second half is like, but we're actually not that bad. Like, so. And even myself, I put out one piece of content which was like a basic communication guide. And it's like I had people like IO Stux who comments on it, who's like a big community figure. Yep. That piece of content is one of the reasons I got an opportunity in NA, because the current coach there had no idea about communication. Like, he was really good at like the X's and O's, horrendous at communicating.
Yeah.
And it's like. That was my first piece of content I ever put on Reddit. And it wasn't even like I put it on Overwatch University, so it was like the smaller subreddit as well. And it's not like it blew up and went to like the Overtime podcast or like some massive thing. On Reddit, got a few upvotes and had ISDux comment on it. And ISDux comments on everything. That's another big thing.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So, you look at the opportunities he gets. He's worked for NYXL Academy, Boston Academy. He's probably going to go to OWL, if not, this like stage 3 or 4 the next season. If he's not on another, because I know he's not on a contenders team at the moment, but I think he probably will be, or he'll go back to like coaching the way that Jane did. Jane's another perfect example. Literally coached Tainted Minds to the worst season they'd ever had in season 1, and again, it's probably not because of him, but he's now in the Overwatch League because he was completely unknown, coaching AU, went and just started streaming all these reviews and within what, probably a year and a half?
Yep, year and a half, Zachary. Yeah.
Year and a half, maybe? He went to the Overwatch League, which is, if we're comparing, while I agree he's probably better than me, a year and a half is probably how long I've been doing this for now. I'm kind of where I still am, really, and that's not a bad thing. I'm fine with that now. But when the original dream was like, I'm going to Owl, I'm getting there within a year. It's like it seemed not unfair, but just worlds apart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely recommend putting out as much stuff as you can, for sure. You don't have to be super interesting and super entertaining. You just need to do it, man. Like, definitely doesn't have to be perfect either. I coach, stream, and play off a bloody laptop. Like, doesn't have to be good. Just do it. That's my biggest piece of advice.
There you go. That's free advice from Choco. Easy.
It's free advice.
Also,
free advice.
Another thing I wanted to touch on as well, since you and I are both similar in this respect, like coming from a bit of a sporting background. Now, for me, I had like more of an individual coaching background because my two most successful sports were tennis and athletics.
Yeah.
Now you coming from football, soccer background, obviously in a bit of a more team environment, and you sort of bring that a little bit into Overwatch. Like, how much did you take from that sort of, as you said, like traditional sport values and transitioning them into Overwatch? Because you said the main thing that you took out of it was communication, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, look, in soccer, I was a goalkeeper. Again, I wasn't the best player.
That's the reason why you're a goalkeeper, mate.
I sucked, dude. Nah, I was an alright keeper. I was just short. I was too short for it. But I was really good.
Like, I didn't play. My God.
You gotta remember, like, goalkeeper's like the tallest position on the field, and I'm like barely 6 foot, if that. So it's like, you go up against like 6'4" guys, like on pretty much the regular. But the thing that I was kind of the best at was always sort of, again, one of them was like I could see everywhere, so as long as I could talk to my backline, I could tell them where they needed to be, what the other team was doing, and I was quite good at that. And the thing is, one of my goalkeeping coaches, he said something along the lines of like, if you're not yelling if you're not coming off the field without a voice that's somewhat broken or lost, you've probably either destroyed the other team or you failed your team. And like that, it was like, it made a lot of sense when you think about it. It's in a soccer game, it's generally pretty like 50-50 normally. And if it's 50-50, it's like, means it's probably in your half a fair bit. And if you're not yelling and losing your voice and things like that, the idea was that you're just not talking enough. And it's like, as a goalkeeper, it's realistically, I think only like, what? If someone takes 10 shots, it's like probably okay to say about 3 of them will be on target that you have to actually stop. So as long as you're good enough to like stop, I don't know, between 3 and 5 goals, like, or 3 or 5 shots a game, then it's like the rest of it just comes down to like your defense stopping that from happening, or your team. But if you're not yelling at them and telling them where to go and what to do, or kind of controlling the backline, it's like you're going to have a lot more shots coming at you. And sometimes some strikers are just freaks of nature. You know what I mean? Like, people just get top bins all the time. Just happens. They're just nuts. But if you can, put a defender just to get a body in the way, then it doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was, from the soccer's perspective in terms of like control. And the more communication was generally the better there. And so I think I brought that in, and I was very quickly able to figure out like, what are all the things that one team should know that they can't exactly see? So like alt tracking, planning, what they should be doing, what route that they're taking, do you need help, etc. Like there's so many stuff you can communicate, and probably to an extent, the teams I'm with, I probably get them to start over communicating, which can be a bit of a, depending on how you look at it, can be a bad thing. But just the fact that I can put in a communication structure and have, Some teams prefer to have like very strict roles, like ground zero. Our roles are generally pretty strict. Other teams that I've coached, some of the roles are a little bit fluid, but as long as the jobs get done and people are listening and things like that, then yeah, I mean that's in my opinion that's one of the biggest differences between people in the bottom of trials and the bottom of contenders is they work and communicate as a team better. Realistically, at that level, the skill difference between someone like, I honestly don't know enough people in open division to make this comparison actually, but I'll use two random names. I'll say like Quad J and Fliss, for example, because I'm pretty sure Fliss is like in the bottom of trials at the moment. I'm not really sure, but Fliss is actually quite a good player, and in comparison to like Quad J, he's actually, if not better, the same. And yet Quad J is probably going to make it through trials, and Fliss is looking for a team, or he's at the bottom, or he's on a bottom tier trials team. And I think probably the biggest thing there is that the team he's going to be on, either the players he has are actually just really bad and they've fluked it there, or the communication on that team is really average. And that's such a big difference in terms of just getting to contenders.
Yep.
From there, you look at someone like Adam versus someone like Quad J, and it's worlds apart. But yeah, communication is such a big thing, and I think from soccer it was, I was really able to get like an authoritative voice, which is obviously very helpful for coaching and very helpful for teaching in-game leaders how they should speak and how they should talk. So one big thing is, Bus and Jungle, who are kind of our two really big talkers. Bus, when he does a plan, he was always, what do you guys think about doing this? Do you guys want to do this? Can we go? Can we engage? Things like that. And it's very quick to have someone be like, if I pretend, it's like, guys, do you think we can do this? To, a more, stronger authoritative. And it's like, you can just tell the way they're sitting in their chair is like, I'm about to fuck face here. And it's like, it went from, can we go on this Zaya to, go the Zaya, go the Zaya. And it's like, are you moving after someone's yelling that in your ear? You're probably moving. So it's, things like that is like, I found was such a massive advantage for me when I first started out. And then obviously rugby, I kind of got that sense of soccer. I had like a sense of authoritative, but I could take my time with it. Rugby, if I took my time with it, obviously I got smacked in the face. So that kind of helped me learn to shorten words a lot. And help me kind of, you want to say the least amount of syllables in a game as possible. So a lot of things in rugby was like one word things like, if you called Rhino, it's like all you're doing is running straight and going down. Yep. And you're just getting as many meters as possible. Obviously you don't have to do that in Overwatch. You do have a fair bit more time, but you still need to say things like, instead of saying, what's Baptiste the ability where people become invincible? I think I can't remember what it's called, but instead of calling it
Immortality Field?
Yeah, that one. Instead of going, kill the Immortality Field, like that doesn't make sense, right? And yet that's the first thing we started to say as a team. And so very quickly it changed to like Lantern to Frisbee. Huh. And now all it is Frisbee. And it's like everyone knows what exactly that means.
The Immortality Field.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It was the most ridiculous first scrim back we'd ever had. So, but yeah, it's like things like that. Like, it's been extremely helpful. And, anyone that has ever played, a team sport at any level should have some understanding. Obviously, I'm fortunate to have like a bit of a better one. The higher I went up, I had better coaches. I had better support staff around me. I could learn from a lot of different people in terms of how that worked. And I was put in some very, communication-oriented roles anyway. And that was always kind of my strength.
Yep.
So, even though my voice sounds like Buddy Kermit the Frog, I could speak loudly, and that's the main thing.
Well, if your voice sounds like Kermit the Frog, mate, at least you can direct kids easier.
Oh god, dude, this is demonetize this, demonetize it, dude. Right. Can't say that.
What do you mean? Like,
get into my van. That's what that sounded like.
It's like listening to the players, you're an inspirational figure.
Oh my god.
How is that?
That is not the first thing that went through my mind.
I don't know what you're thinking about, mate. I was just thinking,
Oh
the
my
younger.
goodness.
You don't know.
I've been-
The younger people watch Kermit the Frog.
The younger people.
Yes.
Oh, fair enough. I see where you're coming from.
If I was an elderly person, which I'm looking like that right now, maybe I'd favor a politician for a coach. I don't know.
ScoMo yelling at you from behind.
Yeah, dude.
Jesus.
It's just a demographic. It's how certain people react to certain things.
Yeah, I thought you took that in a very different direction, man.
Well, I don't know what you've been focusing on, Choc.
Oh my god. I've been baited into this.
Yeah, dude. That wasn't part of my idea.
Goodness me. Yeah, I guess so. Alright. But yeah, so it was very good. It was a very good experience growing up, and I was very lucky to, have those experiences. Not a lot of people can say that they've done a lot of that stuff growing up. So very fortunate to my parents waking up at 5 a.m. and driving me places.
Yeah. Right, those are the good old days.
The good old days. I don't remember waking up at 5 a.m. being a good old day, but
look, when you could ask someone to drive you to a location.
5 a.m. Yeah,
those are the good old days.
I feel that.
Well,
yeah.
We've pretty much gone through a lot of things, Choc, and
yeah.
You've driven pretty much the whole time. I haven't even done my job.
Of course you have.
That's the good thing about talking to coaches, Choc, is that these conversations seem to fly by so quickly, and it can either be like a conversation going like this, or it could be a conversation going like this, or like this.
Yeah.
It's always such a mixed bag. I know John Galt, when I was talking to him. He's a person that actually cares about other people's opinions a lot, but at the same time, he can really go on some long rants.
Yes, he can.
Yes, he can. I certainly remember those advanced scrims, that's for sure.
Have you seen his? You should go watch his stream. He catches himself out on it now.
Yeah,
He's
dude,
improved.
he tells himself off. He's like fucking slapping his hand. He's like, John, you cannot do that.
Yeah. I saw it the other day. He's like, I'm ranting. No, John. I was like, what just happened?
What a legend.
Yeah, dude. I miss old Johnny. I wish he'd come back to OCE.
Hey, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he wants to keep in regular contact of OCE, so whenever whenever I message him, he replies. So I'm sure he'd give the same justice. I mean, look at what
sure.
I'm not a respected coach, so I can imagine. I can imagine if you were to message him or whatever.
Of course, you're a respected coach.
For maybe a couple matches, mate.
Well, it's not a respectful coach.
Maybe
you're a respectful community figure.
Exactly. So maybe next season I'll make my triumphant return.
Oh god.
I will be an authoritarian coach. Because now that I look older and that I sound older theoretically, it's sort of going to be like that Korean structure where the older you are, the more respect the players have for you.
Yeah.
So this is all just an elaborate role play. I'll get the fucking cane out soon. God, don't you know what I'm going through? Come on, you didn't win this match. You have no excuses.
You go over to the Mavs and start just beating Winter with the stick.
Yeah, dickhead, what are you doing?
What kind of position was that?
Yeah. That's great. We've pretty much gone through the whole rally of it. Well, it is called Rally with Racquet.
I like that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that was not meant to be a closing sentence. But Choc, do you have anything to say before we head off into the distance?
No, just like this video, subscribe, click the bell for notifications.
Jesus Christ, this guy's fucking. We should have you on more often.
I'm a veteran.
Yeah. He does everything right.
I'm a veteran. And look, keep supporting the Overwatch scene. Everyone is doing their best to make it work for everyone else. So the more we support the guys at the top, the more support you guys will get down the bottom. Keep working towards the dreams. Keep liking these videos because they're honestly really fun.
Thank you, Overwatch Choc. Thank you, Racquet. Overwatch Choc. Overwatch Choco. I was just referencing your Twitter. As I said,
Oh
the
yeah.
Twitter is right below there as well. So hit him up. Well, don't hit him up. Just follow him. Leave him alone. He's had enough on his
Leave me
plate for the past few months. Oh yeah, thank you very much for watching this, guys. Like, subscribe. You know the deal, and see ya.